So hello, first of all, and welcome to the Alma Research and Education Center webinar. My name is Ibrahim Abu Ahmed. I'm a senior researcher, content editor, and a speaker here at the Alma Center. I first want to say thank you for joining us from around the world. It really is exciting, and it really is a privilege to be able, despite the COVID-19 and the quarantine all over, to be able to still connect and have the ability to also reach out to you. Today, or this evening, is actually the National Memorial Day, the eve of the National Memorial. And it's actually a really, we come to a crossroad at some level, particularly us here today. We have myself and Miriam, who are two people that come from different minorities in Israel. So talking about the experience of being in a minority, celebrating holidays in this time of the year, also adding to that the evening of the National Memorial actually brings a really interesting topic for us to discuss today. So we're coming to you live. Everybody's here from home. I'm right now in Tehran village on the outskirts of Tiberias, and Miriam is in Nahariya. Is that correct, Miriam?
Yes, that's correct. Hello to everyone who's listening.
Excuse me?
I was saying just hello to everyone who's listening.
Yeah, it's great to have everyone here. And, we've been trying to bring this project together in order to, because it is our interest in general, and it is our goal as a Alma to bring the knowledge about the northern borders of Israel, the three borders, the Lebanese, the Syrian, and the Israeli one. And now we're in quarantine, we actually have the ability to bring the border all the way to you. And the side of the border that we want to focus on today is actually our own side, and looking at the communities that are living in the north, and highlight, bring our own personal voices. How do we deal with the coronavirus, particularly when we have major holidays for every single religion in Israel? Ramadan, Passover, and Fasha, the Easter, as well as the Nabi Shuaib holiday for the Druze community. If anybody would like to ask any questions, you can always write them down either on Facebook. I will try to get as many as possible in the comments, or if you can put on the Q&A if you are connected to us on the Zoom. I want to introduce our speaker today. Miriam Hanoun. Miriam comes from a Lebanese family who actually moved to Israel before the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon in 2000. She comes from a Christian family, so they just celebrated Easter. So first of all, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to all of us.
And she's a professional basketball player. Before we start to talk about both of our holidays, because me, myself, I come from a Muslim family, and we are right now, we have the month of Ramadan. So we wanted to bring each of us their own perspective about how does each of our communities deal with the holiday amid quarantine. But before we get to that, I think it is important to a lot of our listeners. Really, Miriam, you're in a special place. I mean, you come from a really specific minority, and I think it's a great time to also shed light on this community. So can you give us a couple of words about your family? How did you guys move to Israel? And a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. So as I said, hello to everyone. I hope you guys doing well and keeping it together. I know it's tough time, but we got it. And so yes, as you said, I moved to Israel when I was 5 years old. I came with my family from Lebanon, and we moved to Israel with, because of the withdrawal from Lebanon. The Jewish army, the Israeli army, they withdrew from Lebanon, and we came with them to Israel. And since then, I grew up in Nahariya, which is the city, and I've lived here most of my life. And it's definitely an interesting topic that everybody keep asking me about it, because my identification, like how do I call myself. What am I? Am I Christian? Am I Lebanese? Am I Jewish? Am I Israeli? And
What's your
I
answer?
always, I would always say I'm Lebanese Christian. That's my answer. But at the same time, I can't deny the fact that I'm Israeli. As I said, I've lived here most of my life, so I've learned so many things from Israel, and I've taken a lot of things that I like and I admire about Israeli, Israelis and their culture and everything. So it's an interesting question because I definitely see myself as Lebanese Christian, but at the same time, I can say that I'm Israeli. I feel like I belong to Israel in so many aspects, and it's gonna take a while if I'm gonna start now and explain every point of it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we as minorities living here in Israel, I think you know, it comes with it that you as a minority would have complexity, and particularly in our region and in this country, we as minorities definitely facing a lot of complexities, and we touch a lot upon that in our panels that we hold together all the time in the office, and now on Zoom as well and on Facebook Live. But today we want to focus on the positive side of things, at least at the beginning. Let's talk about the holidays.
That's
So
okay.
how was Easter, by the way? How did you guys celebrate when all the churches are closed? So how did the community, how did your family face this different holiday,
Mhm.
and how did you guys deal with the new reality?
Well, there's no doubt this year it's been completely different than any other year, and you know, um, for us as not just Lebanese but as Christian, it's so important to go to church. And we get done with church, we come back home, we have our meal together, the whole family, and afterwards, playing, dancing, and then we visit each other. We always come to each other and say happy holiday, like you know. And this year it's been completely different because first of all, even my family did not celebrate together. So all of my brothers, we had to Zoom. We had to Zoom with them and talk about everything through Zoom. It wasn't easy, and as I always tell my mom when she called me, she's like, "Hey, how do I even use that Zoom?" It took 2 hours to even explain to her how to use it. So pretty much she wasted the whole day. But it was different, definitely different, and we didn't feel this year that the holiday was as much. We woke up the morning of the holiday. We were watching the church itself, and we prayed all together, and afterwards we were like happy holiday, and then we ate, but nothing more than this. And it felt like we were missing something this year.
Is the ceremony
So
was the ceremony live on Zoom or on Facebook or something that you were
yes,
able to?
yes. Yes, the ceremony was live on Facebook, and we were able to watch it. And the priest was in the church, just him by himself. Nobody else was allowed to get in there, and he just filmed the whole ceremony. And we were watching live, and that's pretty much how we celebrated this year. And hopefully next year it won't be this way, but I just hope.
Yeah, we hope that this situation is going to be better by the end of the year. Definitely, all our hopes are with that. But also, I'm curious because Nahabia is a majority of a Jewish community. So,
Correct.
which church, by the way, do you go to? Which town or?
Yes, well, we don't have a church in Nahariya. We have a church next to Nahariya. It's in a city called Akko. So we have our own church. It's called Lebanese Church. And pretty much all the Lebanese people just go there every Saturday instead of Sunday. And yes, nowadays you can't just take off work whenever you want. And so because the off day is Saturday, so we have to adjust ourselves and like play accordingly. And we go to church on Saturday, and it's 15 minutes drive, so it's not that bad. But it's definitely different than you feel. It's only like 50 people that comes to church every time. It's not like my dad used to tell me it used to be like hundreds in Lebanon, or any other places that he went to. So
Yeah, I
you
mean
can
the
feel it.
community here is relatively small, isn't it? The Lebanese community here.
Correct. We only have about 3,000 people in entire Israel, and we spread it all over the country. So it's not like we all located in Nahria or one place. And yes, not a lot of people know what Lebanese is.
Well, I mean, this is one of the opportunities that we can, bring your voice out there, and so people would get to know different communities that live here and understand that we're living in a multicultural society, and part of that is actually exposing people to those societies. This is one of our goals, and we are proud that we get the chance to have you on, and giving your story to everyone. So thank you also for your efforts, and putting the Lebanese people on the map. We are proud of your work. I
Well,
can tell
thank
you
you so
that
much.
for us as a Muslim community, it's been also a bit different. This month we're celebrating the month of Ramadan, which is not
Happy holiday to you.
exactly it's not exactly a holiday. It's a whole month, so you can't have a month of a holiday. But it's a sacred month. Um, it starts as the month of Ramadan, one of the month in the Islamic calendar. It's
Hmm.
the most sacred month of the year. Uh, and the belief is that also the Quran itself came down to the Prophet Muhammad in Ramadan. So it makes it even more sacred of a month. People fast from sunrise to sunset. And when I lived in the U.S. for a few years, and the one question that people ask, water too? So yes, and water too. I haven't fasted for a few years now, but it's the most common question is, do you also have to fast? Is water also included? So yeah, people fast from sunrise to sunset. Um, and it has not only like a religious perspective of just the fast, there is a reasoning in order to also understand the suffering and the difficult times that some of the people in the poverty areas feel, where people can't afford to have food every day. Uh, and it brings you to understand and connect with that feeling that sometimes people have, the difficulty of living in dire conditions, and it gets you to relate to those
Hmm.
people. And it's a month for prayer, and it's a sacred month to self evaluation, and looking at your own self, and trying to give back to the community, and try to give support to the people in need. This is the essence of the month. But of course, you can't have a month of fasting, and we have iftar, which literally in English means breakfast. And the iftar is basically the when dinner is after sunset. We have our breakfast because the first time we eat in the day, and you can't have an iftar and a meal after a whole day of fast without actually having a whole family gathering, and having a huge meal and bringing relatives. And obviously this year it's not the case. We have a lockdown that starts every single night in every Arab village, starting from 6 p.m. all the way to 3 a.m. And the reasoning for that is most of the people, while they're fasting, the people stay at home. It's tiring. It's not easy to be outside and walking around when you're fasting. So a lot of people don't go out too much during the day, but they do go out all the night. I mean, you can eat starting from sundown all the way till the morning, till the next sunrise. And about a half an hour before the sunrise, we have something that's called sahur, which is basically the opportunity to eat a small little meal before the prayer in order to get your body ready for the fast of the day. So, the younger crowd always stay up all night, all the way until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. They eat something, go to sleep, and then like sleep half of the day. And this year, because of the COVID-19, because of that a threat that it's actually imposing on the entire community, the decision was to restrict movement after 6 p.m., about an hour before the
Hmm.
iftar. And it's actually impractical to buy any. I wanted to buy a drink a couple nights ago, and I had to leave the town and find a gas station in order to just buy a small little drink. It has its difficulties, but to tell you the truth, it's I think it's needed. Um, I do not want to see a position where we end this month of Ramadan and then reach the actual holiday, which is Eid al-Fitr, which is
Hmm.
3 days after the Ramadan, celebrating the end of Ramadan, and this is the actual holiday. And I really hope that we don't deteriorate into a position where we have to do, a holiday lockdown like the Passover this year. I want to ask you something else, by the way. Now that we mentioned COVID-19, how does the
Hmm.
community around you deal with COVID-19 in general? I mean, do you see, people wearing masks, gloves? Are people protected, or is there a lack of understanding to the threats? Or how does the community deal with that?
Yes, I was actually going to ask you this, but well, honestly, I feel like people are following up. They're listening. They're doing what they need to do. They're wearing gloves and wearing a mask and everything. People here pretty much have that, self, like they're really following. They're just being very tuned to what's going on in the country, and they understand that it's going to affect all of us. So honestly, I don't think we have any major problem with the restrictions or anything that they tell us to do. I'm more interested to hear how is it over there in your village. Is it do people listen? Do people actually, you know, follow up or?
To tell you the truth, I mean, there is an essential, like it's something that we have all the time. It's that feeling, or that whatever happens in Israel, sometimes it's a bit far from us. Things that happen
Mhm,
all the way there in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are not applicable to us. And it's the same
mhm,
thing with the COVID-19 as well. I mean, when you hear about the cases, the majority of the cases in Jewish Orthodox communities and in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv, and people have a feeling here in the north, in the small little Arab towns, that it's way too far from us and we have nothing to worry about. It's not going to reach us. It's never going to be me. So unfortunately, I mean, when you walk down the street, the majority does not have masks. Even in the shops, when I go and try to shop around, not every place, uh, you don't see even like, the owners of stores, not all of them have masks. It's something actually really frustrating. But
mhm,
I think with the day, I mean, a couple of days ago, there was only one person with a mask that I saw the entire day. Today, I went out to do some shopping, and there was quite a few people with masks on. And when we look at one Arab village, which is Deir al-Assad in the Western
mhm,
Galilee, I think 1 out of 3 people is infected with coronavirus. So the stats alone are staggering. And there is a total lockdown from morning till night in Deir al-Assad, in order to try to contain the infection there. But the
mhm,
widespread of the corona, I mean, we are still concerned. We have a whole month that people want to visit each other, and it's not the same way. Yeah, I mean, even my aunt asked us to, visit them a couple nights ago, and me and my mom just stared at each other for 10 minutes. What should we do? And then we decided not to go. But it was weird to make that kind of decision. It's not something that we took for granted.
of
Um,
course.
and
So pretty much you're saying there is a reasonable reason for them to shut down the village or whatever.
Absolutely. Most of the municipalities, the Arab municipalities, the vast majority actually asked and called for total lockdown on the villages.
Hmm.
This is unprecedented. I mean, we've never seen that kind of a, attempt to do a total lockdown on Arab communities with our political, there's always political tension. And this time, the communities themselves are asking to
To
do
do
to,
it.
to, to do a lockdown. They are trusting the police with a lockdown, unlike in
Hmm.
the past. So it is something that we see as a change. And speaking of change, we are commemorating tonight the Israeli National Memorial Day, and then after that the Israeli Independence Day.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, as a Lebanese, how do you feel about it?
Well, honestly, because my dad served in the Lebanese army, I feel like it means something to him that, a lot of his friends has died at some point in his life. So yes, he keeps them in his memory, obviously, and it means something. It's not just another day. And the Independent Day, it's definitely means a lot. I mean, especially to me, as I said, like I grew up here, so to me, that's all I know. To me, I know that I'm gonna celebrate, the Independent Day, and just like everyone else. And so to me, it doesn't feel any different. Like that's the only thing I know, and I celebrate it, and I don't see it as anything, like different. So
So,
it's interesting.
so I mean, we've heard a lot from other Lebanese Israelis in the past, mentioning the fact that there need to be a recognition of the Lebanese who were a part of the, Israeli entrance into South Lebanon, and the IDF being in South Lebanon. And how does your dad talk about it? Does he mention his frustration? Is it something that is out, publicly spoken at home? I mean, you came, like you said, as young, so
Yeah,
you got to learn Hebrew pretty early. Your dad came
true.
much older than that, so I
Hmm.
can assume that it's a bit more different to, learning Hebrew, adapting to a whole different country, and th- does he also feel the same way about Independence Day?
Um, let's say it's. I bet it's more complicated for him to express how he feel and what he thinks about it, because I know for sure that he doesn't feel and doesn't think about it the same way I do. I know that he believes that we didn't get the recognition that we deserve. And no doubt my dad sometimes, does express his frustration. And he also knows that he's not able to do anything about it. He tried in the past, and they tried, not just him, like a lot of people, and nothing has changed. So
Can you just give us, for like in a quick sentence to our audience, what was the role of it was the South Lebanon Army, is that correct? So what was their
yes.
role while the IDF was in South Lebanon, just so some of our readers can understand, listeners can understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Well, different soldiers have different, obviously, roles, but a lot of them help with like information. They used to give a lot of information to the Jewish army uh, on how, to catch the side that we were fighting against. And
you. The terrorist organization, the South Lebanon.
yes, correct. And you know, so my dad was a surgeon there, and he was just expecting, I guess, for the country to help them more, to be able to like settle and a little bit easier in Israel, instead of having to do everything by himself from the beginning, completely. Like his life completely changed, from being somewhere up top to someone who has to start from scratch. So it was a bit difficult for him, but at the same time, he's happy that we're doing it by ourselves, because he wants us, to build ourselves by ourselves and not trust anybody that's going to help us.
And he feels okay with your feelings, like you said about the Independence Day, like he's okay with your own understanding of it. Is that correct?
Yes, of course. Just because he thinks one thing, it doesn't mean he doesn't, just because he doesn't agree with me, it doesn't mean he has to change my mind about it. Because he knows that I grew up here and he didn't, so he
I mean,
understands
I
it completely.
agree, but not everybody would try to force their kids to
No,
a
of
certain
course, sometimes we
ideology or
have,
the other.
yeah, sometimes we have, some arguments here and there, but it's nothing serious, and he completely understands that I grew up here and he didn't, so he understands where I'm coming from.
I mean, out of curiosity, I mean, I've met a couple of Lebanese Israelis in the past,
Hmm.
majority in Tiberias, by the way, uh, and they all have the
Correct.
same sentiment. I mean, maybe I haven't met any who do,
Uh-huh.
who are, not as comfortable with their Israeli identity, but almost every single one that I've already met were very Israeli, very comfortable with their Israeli identity. I mean, one of them was like on the other side of the extreme, where she refused to speak
Hmm.
Arabic with me. She would only speak with me in Hebrew.
Hmm.
Um, Do you have any like reasoning why would that be? Why could that be something that happens to the younger generation of Lebanese Israelis? I know I'm putting you
Yes.
on the spot. I apologize, but
No, 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 it's okay. I mean, it's like sometimes you don't want to say the truth as it is, but I'm just gonna be honest and say yes, I know why,
okay.
um, because I can tell you that my sister is sometimes like that too, and I think the reason for it is because a lot of Israeli Jewish people in her school, they confuse, like let's say they call her Arab, you know, but they call her Arab not as something good. They call her Arab to offend her.
In a derogatory way.
Yes. And so she gets offended by this. And that's when she tries to almost hide her true, like identity. And we keep explaining to her that no, you shouldn't be trying to hide it. You should be proud of it. And you gotta say that you're Lebanese, you came from Lebanon, that you support Israel, that you with Israel, you feel like you're one of the Israelis. And it's tough for that generation because they don't really understand what my parents been through. So for them, if
How
somebody
old
is
is your
offending
sister?
them at school, she's 16.
Okay.
She's 16 years old, yes. And nowadays this generation is really lacking a lot of information. So honestly, I would say that's the reason why. And they feel Israeli because, as I said, like we were like we grew in Jewish city. So all we know is what they do, we do the same thing. So for
Which you
her, for not to come,
which is curious that the Lebanese community actually moved to Tiberias, Nahariya, northern communities, obviously close to the Lebanese border, but also Jewish communities and not Arab communities. From some of my understanding is that basically the Arab communities here kind of rejected the Lebanese community that came to Israel. Is that a true assumption or?
yes, definitely. I would say at the beginning, when we first moved to Israel, I heard a lot of, Arab villages that refused to have us in their village because some of us call us, like we betrayed them,
Betrayed
So we,
Arabs as a general
yes,
term, I guess.
hmm yes. So, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is one of the most sensitive point, for me at least, that I think, generally speaking, of when you ask me what's the biggest like issue between Lebanese and identity, because I would say that we kind of fall in between. I feel like Jewish sometimes don't really understand what's the meaning of Lebanese, and sometimes Arab don't really see any different between Arabs or Lebanese, and that's when you put somebody on the spot.
I
And
apologize.
that's when my sister, that's when she starts to try to hide her identity because she doesn't feel comfortable saying, you know what, I'm a little different, or maybe I consider myself to be a little different.
Well, I mean, here in the Alma Center, this is what we do. We don't hide from complexities. Actually, we'd like to, put them right out there, and we're putting them out there right now and live on Facebook. And this is part of our initiative. I mean, we want to show uh, complexity, and we want to show the real image of Israel's northern borders on all its sides, and including, of course, the communities that live in the north. And it's nothing is white or black. Everything's gray. Everything's in the middle. And this is also our understanding as a center, that you can't just judge a community one way or the other. We need to understand their complexity. We need to understand their reasonings, and you know, it's not easy to be a minority within a minority within a minority. The
True.
Lebanese community is less than 1%, and even with a community like mine, the Arab Israeli community, the Arab citizens of Israel were 20% or 21%, but still, we live in a complete complexity and identity crisis, because after 48, when we talk about the Memorial Day tomorrow and tonight, um, it's a tough day. And bringing after it the Independence Day, I wouldn't say it's a day of celebration. it's a really confusing and complex day. In the Palestinian heritage, it's Israel's independence and the Palestinian Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe. That's the storyline. And it's something that Israeli Arab citizens have up to today. And but in the past few years, we're actually reaching kind of like a crossroads where some people are looking at themselves as just Israeli citizens. Like you said, you're raised here, you live here, so that's the identity you have. Others don't see it this way. They see that, before 48, we were the Palestinian community, culture, and despite the establishment of the state of Israel, it does not, for them, change their own identity. Or you have me in the middle, where I think you cannot just take one side of that identity. I think it's both. And I think just looking at yourself and, saying that you're only Israeli because you were born here, you're hiding the other side of your identity. And it's the same thing with Palestinian, because yes, we are Palestinian. Culture, norms, food, background, history, everything about it is Palestinian. We don't have the same, none of these attributes that I mentioned as Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, or Egypt. It's ours, and it's our story, and it's a Palestinian story. And I definitely have no shame in it. On the contrary, I'm proud of it. But at the same time, I'm proud of being born here and raised here, because I wouldn't have brought up the same way if I was in Lebanon or Syria, or even in West Bank or Gaza Strip. Having the fact that we were raised in this country with different morals, different ideology, and we kind of blended in what is today the Israeli culture, which is a blend of so many cultures, and we're a part of that. And we can't exclude ourselves from it. Half of the words that we speak as Arabs, half of the words that we use today are in Hebrew. And in Hebrew the same way. When Jewish people speak in Hebrew, they use so much Arabic, particularly when they're cursing. So it's part of that society, that blend of societies that we reached, and I think we should appreciate and accept both sides of who we are. But when you reach a day like Independence Day, it's not cut and clear. I mean, when I think about Independence Day, I think about my grandma's story. That she had to move at 6-year-old from Bethlehem all the way to Tiberias, and then from Tiberias, and then they had to hide in a cave for a month before they resided in the village Turan, where we are right now. So for them, it was a struggle. It was a struggle, and Independence Day, it's her story of her struggle. While for the Jewish community, it's a celebration and the establishment of the state. And for me, 2 generations down the line, I'm still stuck in that kind of complexity. And even though I'm accepting both sides of who I am and, the 2 sides of my identity, on this day, it's more difficult than any other day of the year.
This is honestly very interesting. And I feel like this whole issue of complexity that you just described, I feel like this is really, it takes me to my next point, which I feel like people should be able to be very open-minded, and they should try to understand where people coming from and why they feel the same way they think. And it's very important. It's very important that people are very open-minded about it.
Oh, absolutely. And this is exactly what we're trying to do here. This is exactly, the reasoning behind our meeting today. And in general, all the panels of communities that we do and we talk about in our Alma Center. So thank you for your time. And I think it's an appropriate right now to wish all our listeners, first of all, happy holidays to anyone who's celebrating. And thank you again, Miriam, for coming with us. And please, guys, like, subscribe, share this video. We really want your input out there. If there aren't any other questions out there, I think it's time for us to say have a blessed evening. And we hope for everybody also that this COVID-19 crisis will be over soon, so we can everybody come back to their normal life and finally get out of this mess. Mariam, thank you. Any last words?
Thank you so much. Yes, thanks for everyone who is listening, and please take care of yourself, and happy holiday to everyone. And hopefully next year we'll be talking about it differently.
And hopefully some people will be, coming to our center and listening to this conversation instead of doing it again on Zoom.
For sure.
Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.